Okay, so I'm here to make this video to explain to you what happens when the sun goes into the first house in your birth chart. What is the first house? The first house represents your body, your vitality, a piece of your soul, and the main important part of your birth chart that will represent your personality and how you come off and appear to other people. Short and simple, this house is ruled by Aries and ruled by Mars. The sun, it's not a planet, but this large gassy star that's in the middle of the universe, and all the planets revolve around it. So therefore, because everything revolves around the sun just naturally has this huge self-importance, and it just feels kingly and godly and stuff. Everything revolves around the sun. Everything is like within the sun's orbit, within the sun's gravity and stuff. Sun is also like a significator of government and just power and stuff. The sun is our Atmakarga. Atmakarga means soul significator. It's a natural signification of who we are in our soul. You could say it's also our ego, but it's more so like who we are in our soul. So when you put, and it also can represent our father too. It's like the number one significator of your dad or father-like figure. So when you put the sun in the first house, you might naturally assume that someone with sun in the first house might be very selfish or have just a strong, radiant personality. But that's not the case for everybody in general. That might be the case some of the times. This description is not going to apply for everybody, because I would need to specifically see that person's birth chart. But on a general basis, you might be able to see someone with sun in the first house who will have maybe this strong, radiant personality and aura. They might have this strong vitality and just have very strong health and not really get sick. But all that depends on your ascendant and what house is your sun the lord of. Because if your sun is, the lord of your 6th house and it goes into the ascendant, well then this person, they might suffer with health issues. If sun is like the 12th lord and it goes into the ascendant, well then the person, they might not be so confident. If the sun is, the lord of the 4th, 8th, or 12th, and it goes into the ascendant, then the person, they might not be so extroverted and confident. They might be very introverted, because the 4th, 8th, and 12th houses, they are known as moksha houses. Moksha means like, liberation and freedom and all that stuff. Those are like the private houses in someone's birth chart, where they sort of are secluded from, the world and society. So, you really just got to pay attention to what house is your sun the lord of, to really see what could happen when you got the sun in the first house. And also how tightly conjunct your sun is to your ascendant also plays a huge role to see how your sun in the first house will affect you. Because, for example, you might just be you might be a Leo ascendant, and it might just be 5 degrees Leo ascendant, but your sun could be in like 27 degrees Leo. It's still in the first house, but it's not closely conjunct your ascendant. And because the conjunction wouldn't be so tightly together, well then the effects of the sun in the first house wouldn't be so strong. It wouldn't be so binding. You see, the sun is also referred to and known as like a mildly malefic planet, because the sun can nourish us. It provides us with energy and light and heat, but the sun can also burn us. We need sunscreen protection, because we can get skin cancer and just get burnt and stuff. So what the sun does is, in whatever house it goes into, it sort of illuminates and brightens the qualities and the traits of that house. But at the same time, it's like leaving a hot iron on a shirt for too long, and it leaves a burn mark. So the sun can also illuminate a house and brighten the qualities of it, and it can also burn and damage some of the significations of that house. So one thing about the first house is that it also represents our head. Our head, one of the main things our head has is eyes. And the sun is extremely bright. You can't look directly in the sun without being blinded. So if the sun is tightly conjunct the ascendant, you know, if there's like maybe no more than probably a 12 degrees difference in conjunction with the sun and the ascendant, well, yeah, if it's tightly conjunct the ascendant, then you can see this, that the person with this placement, they could be blinded themselves. Not physically blinded, but metaphorically blinded. They might be blinded by their own self-importance. They could be so caught up and wrapped up in their own world and not see the importance or significations of anyone else, and just feel as though that they are really important. You know, they could just be blinded by their ego. You know, they could just, and they can, and the sun is also very hot, and this heat can be metaphorical for like their wrath, their anger. So someone with sun in the first house, they could also be rather hot-headed. That's something else you could pay attention and watch out for. But the varying degrees of this stuff will greatly depend on what sign your sun is in, what house is your sun the lord of, and how tightly conjunct your sun is to your ascendant. But because the sun looks at your 7th house in your birth chart, because it's directly across from the 7th house, there is a fear and there is a danger of this person not really getting along with people, or really not getting along with forming close relationships with people, because they bring their ego into relationships. And that ego, that strong personality, that inability to see things from other people's perspective because you're so blinded, can damage your relations with other people. And that is essentially what happens when you have sun in the first house. Sun in the first house can make you someone who is very strong-minded and very independent. But as I said, all those things really vary and depends on several things. But that is essentially it, what happens when you have sun in the first house. I hope this gave you great insight and clarity on what to expect if you have this placement in your chart. And thank you for watching.